When you think of the kangaroo, you think of Australia, and them being the staple herbivores of the land down under, grazing and browsing where they please. And of course, they live in Australia and pretty much nowhere else. However, in places where kangaroos and wallabies are not known to live, everywhere else, there have been several sightings of them hopping about doing their own things, and some of them doing some very rather non kangaroo activities. Welcome to Cryptid Corner, the series all things cryptids, and today we're going to look into the phantom kangaroo phenomenon. Every habitable continent on Earth has game in the form of deer or antelope, but Australia is an exception to this trend due to Australia being isolated from the other continents for about the past 50 to 35 million years, with the kangaroo filling in their niche in their absence. Marsupials, which split off from placental mammals around 160 million years ago, would evolve in South America and would eventually move into Australia via Antarctica, which served as a sort of bridge between the continents as well as hosting its own sort of environments. And apart from monotremes, a bizarre Eocene placental mammal known as Tingamara, bats and rats, marsupials would be the only mammals to inhabit the bizarre land of Australia, at least until dingoes would show up, with kangaroos being some of the most distinguished due to their locomotion. See, unlike other moderately sized grazers and browsers that use quadrupedal movement, kangaroos have evolved bipedal hopping movements to allow them to cover a lot of ground quickly. But despite this, not all large marsupials hop. Extinct relatives of wombats known as diprotodonts that reached hippo sizes, and predatory marsupials like the lioness-sized Phylacoleo all retained a form of quadrupedal locomotion. But kangaroos just kind of managed to crack the code of locomotion in the flat terrain of Australia, evading predators and escaping very fast while also benefiting from the upright posture via the hopping method. This also allows them to spot predators by standing over the grassland environments. Today, the largest kangaroos are the red kangaroos, but the Procroptodon galea was the largest kangaroo ever, averaging sizes of 2 meters or 6'6" and weighing up to 530 pounds. Although it is thought that due to their giant size and while looking at their legs, it is highly probable that they didn't hop around as consistently as other kangaroos did. They'd usually do it in shorter bursts, or they'd just be kind of slower. There was also a line of extinct kangaroos that are related to musky rat kangaroos called Propleopus or bear kangaroos, which were more quadrupedal and lived as opportunistic omnivores, eating meat when fruit and leaves just weren't appetizing enough, similar to bears, and they would go extinct around 500,000 years ago. And given kangaroos are already jacked to all hell with giant arms, ended sharp claws, and have a tendency to strangle out anything that poses a threat, fuck existing near a carnivorous kangaroo to any capacity. There are smaller kangaroos that are a little bit more omnivorous, but these kangaroos were a bit bigger, around the size of a medium-sized kangaroo. So yeah, screw that. What the hell, Australia? I'm glad y'all took that one back. And on the note of just how stacked they are, they're ultimately docile, like deer, and they'll probably even let you get close. But when frightened, they can become quite unpredictable. And if you're unlikely, they might just choose fight over flight. And with their ripped arms, their very sharp claws, and their very powerful legs that each end in their own claws, it's best not to take them on. Everyone, of course, has fought. Could you beat a kangaroo in a fight? Could a trained fighter beat a kangaroo? Probably not a red. Absolutely not. There's kind of a strat where you hide behind a tree, but no, do not. But since dingoes and thylacines have been the bane of their existence, kangaroos have developed a deep-seated hatred towards anything canine shaped, attacking dogs on sight in order to ensure that their territory is predator-free, and even will go as far as to lure dogs out into bodies of water where they will drown the pursuing pooches. So, yeah, if you see a kangaroo chilling out in a pond, keep you and especially your dog out of that water. And given that it's Australia we're talking about, there's probably a 10-foot long crocodile just waiting to get all of the above in the middle of the struggle. Now, when it comes to phantom kangaroos, it's pretty simple, at least on the surface, with them mainly being kangaroos and wallabies that are spotted outside of their native territories of Australia, like in places like the United States. But beyond this, some reports describe these kangaroos as being impossibly large or even carnivorous. Kangaroos themselves at one point were considered cryptids, being first spotted in 1499 and kind of being in scientific limbo until 1629 when one was captured and a living specimen would be captured in 1770. But it would also be fitting that creatures that are so bizarre that it took hundreds of years to be acknowledged by science as real to still live on in the form of living cryptids in other areas. This time as an out-of-place style cryptid, but you get the gist. These sightings have come in from all over the world, with them occurring continents apart, mainly in mainland United States, the UK, France, Japan, and New Zealand, with a lot of them just seeming to be weird or even too comical to believe. Some of these stories are just funny. But as you will see, there are a lot of accounts of phantom kangaroos, some more justified than others, but we'll get into that in a bit. So without further ado, make sure to sit tight as we go through a long-ass list of kangaroo sightings. The oldest and strangest report of a phantom kangaroo that I could find dates back to 1831, when two sailors would spot a giant kangaroo in Dusky Sound on South Island, New Zealand. And when I say giant, I don't mean like a 6-foot tall, or an 8-foot tall, or even a 10-foot tall kangaroo. These fellas claimed to see a 30-foot tall kangaroo that watched them from the shore. And as they got closer, the kangaroo leaped into the water, swam across the sound, and darted off never to be seen again. In 1899, in Richmond, Wisconsin, a woman witnessed a kangaroo in her backyard during a tornado. In year 1900, in the Pine Barrens of New Jersey, where it is said that the Jersey Devil reigns supreme, a kangaroo-like creature was spotted near a barn following screams that sounded like those of a woman's. In early November of 1907, in Pennsburg, Pennsylvania, a kangaroo-like animal was spotted by locals, often fending off dog attacks and reportedly sending dogs airborne with swift kicks before escaping. In 1934, near South Pittsburgh, Tennessee, a lot of places that sound like places in other areas but are in other places, which is fitting for a creature that is said to be in a place where it isn't. That aside, in Pittsburgh, Tennessee, a creature resembling a kangaroo was spotted around the community for about 5 days. But unlike other kangaroos, this one had a taste for blood, poaching livestock and dogs, including a poor police doggo, and seemingly eating them, which is very not kangaroo-like. This is a very bizarre account, and it gained widespread coverage around the time, with it ending in a failed search that left people wondering what it was, mostly believing it was a farce. The whole case got a lot of widespread ridicule. Also around this time, wallabies were frequently spotted across the UK, with red-necked wallabies popping up in England and in Scotland. In 1949, a Greyhound driver would be doing his routes near Grove City, Ohio at night, when all of a sudden a large kangaroo-like animal would clear the road in a few hops, jumping over barbed wire fencing and moving off into the night. In a Minneapolis neighborhood, a series of kangaroo sightings would come in, spanning from 1957 all the way into 1967, 10 years later. And in 1958 in Nebraska, a kangaroo was spotted by Charles Wetzel chasing dogs around his house. Sometime in the 70s, the beginning of a series of wallaby sightings would start up in the southwest of Paris, France. And in 1974, this is the best story out of all of them, the Chicago Police Department would send 2 officers to respond to a kangaroo encounter after someone would see a kangaroo chilling on his porch. And the officers eventually managed to track a kangaroo into an alleyway. But according to the story, the officers tried to handcuff the kangaroo. They didn't tranquilize it, they just tried to handcuff it. But this kangaroo was not going in without a fight and kicked one of the officers in the leg and caused them to kind of withdraw while the kangaroo escaped off into the night. And for the next month, there were several kangaroo sightings that popped up around Illinois and Wisconsin. God, that is just amazing. That story is just insane. In 1978, in Waukesha, Wisconsin, 2 men would encounter a kangaroo, even taking a supposed picture of the roo. In 1981, a Utah farmer named Ray Alt would tend to his flock of sheep when nearby he would notice a yellow kangaroo hopping by. In 1999, in Wellman, Iowa, another farmer named Lois Eckerhard would spot a kangaroo-like creature hopping near her cattle. In 2000, in London, there were sightings of about 6 more British marsupials, but instead of them being wallabies, they told of 6-foot-tall kangaroos. From 2002 to 2009, kangaroo-like animals were spotted near Miyama Mountain in the Miyagi Prefecture in Japan, with there often being a mention of a joey being present in the mama's pouch. And in 2013, there were 2 encounters of kangaroos in the United States, with them both bearing video evidence. In Oklahoma, some hunters would spot a kangaroo out in a field, and thankfully, they would not shoot the kangaroo with their guns, rather pulling out their phones and recording the video and uploading it to YouTube. And in North Salem, New York, a wallaby would be spotted by a local who would film it. Although I could not find any footage of this initial encounter, but I did find plenty of photos after, like this little wallaby all bundled up. I like that. Now, with so many sightings of kangaroos and wallabies, what can we make of it? Are there really population of kangaroos living outside of Australia, or is this something else? Here on Cryptid Corner, we always take the wildest explanations first and go down the list. And regarding the US-based sightings at least, I got a pretty damn weird one for you. You see, some have interpreted these older sightings, in particular the one that was more, carnivorous, as run-ins not with kangaroos, but with another creature known as the devil monkeys. And devil monkeys are described as baboon-like primates, similar to baboons, that are said to wreak havoc on many animals and people in the American wilderness. There are said to be about, 3 to 4 feet tall and potentially adapting kangaroo-like bodies in order to adapt to life on the ground, taking the hopping route of bipedal locomotion opposed to, human walking form. Now, devil monkeys are very interesting, and it is a topic worthy of their own video, especially with the implications that they could be related to Bigfoot in some way. You gotta talk about that. But I really do not think that these sightings account for anything like a devil monkey. It's just, these creatures are often completely barren of ape-like features, and, if something quacks, it's likely a duck, right? So I'd be more inclined to believe that when people say that it's a kangaroo, and not like some ape kangaroo that is like the only one to evolve to look like a kangaroo. And that's just weird. But as unlikely as it is, and how weird nature is in general, we might just get, these existing in their kangaroo forms, just because, out of spite. Nature does pretty weird things with evolution. But I'm pretty sure you've all been thinking the same thing throughout this video. Surely these sightings have to be, escaped kangaroos or wallabies who found their ways into the wilderness. And in a large amount of these sightings, you are correct. Several of these kangaroo sightings have occurred after local circuses, zoos, and private owners had reported their kangaroos escaping. with the 2013 sightings even resulting in escaped kangaroos and wallabies being returned to their owners. And since then, this has happened a lot, with the most recent case occurring as recently as 2 weeks prior to this video's release. Kangaroos just tend to get out. I mean, I'd figure a kangaroo is kind of hard to keep in place. You know, they're bouncing all over the place, probably jump stuff, climb stuff with their arms and all that. And the reports of kangaroos attacking dogs also seems to line up with typical kangaroo behavior. Perhaps these roos would have also had to have encounters with wolves. That must have really sucked for them, but the idea of a kangaroo taking on a wolf, like, that's got to be really cool imagery, although it must have really sucked for the kangaroo. And regarding the wallabies spotted in the UK and in New Zealand and in France, well, these wallabies have all been introduced into these areas by humans, mostly accidentally, but I think in New Zealand they were meant to be hunted there. But these wallabies have managed to establish colonies in these areas that have endured into current year. And that is just so cool. You know, the idea of places like the UK and France and, I think there's one in Hawaii too, that all have small colonies of wallabies all hopping around. That's just amazing. I love that idea. And I think it doesn't really harm the local environment. So anyone concerned about how it would affect the environment, I'm pretty sure it's fine. Hopefully it's fine. That's really cool though. But despite this, some of the accounts don't really correlate with any escapes. No local or even distant zoos reported any kangaroos getting out. And regarding, the carnivorous kangaroo sighting and the 30-foot tall one from New Zealand, there are just a few that don't line up with anything. And that's pretty simple. Some kangaroo sightings could, of course, be missightings of deer doing weird shit. Deer do rear up on their hind legs, and they do try to, they do this in order to eat leaves and fruit and to fend off predators. And if you're really high or something, you might even think that it's a kangaroo if they're like acting weird or jumping really fast, passing by. And deer also do share a hatred for canines as well, and have been known to attack dogs in order to ensure the safety of their fawns. But it's pretty simple, guys. A lot of these accounts just seem like bullshit, Tall tales in order to get a funny story in the paper, or to fool a bunch of people, or to get some attention. But some people would even get photographs from Australia and then would show them to people as if this photo was taken, just a few miles away. But it must be interesting, being in that weird kind of circumstance to people who actually encountered kangaroos, to where they probably heard tales of people saying that there were kangaroos or they saw kangaroos in America. And then eventually, a kangaroo just managed to hop along, who escaped from a zoo or something. Like, I mean, what the hell? Like, there's no way there's a kangaroo. The kangaroo just hops up. Like, bro, I wouldn't even believe my own eyes at that point. Like, bro, what's going on? Why is there a kangaroo on my doorstep? And why is he speaking English? And in an interesting twist that we don't often see in Cryptid Corner, we managed to find exactly what we were looking for. Kangaroos and wallabies living and surviving in the wilderness thousands of miles away from Australia's shores. And although a lot of the American stories were either completely made up or were singular encounters with escapees that never established permanent populations, the European wallabies are just the coolest things ever, and the ones in New Zealand and the ones in Hawaii. Every now and again, I think, what are those wallabies doing? What did they encounter? What animals did they see that no other wallabies have ever seen before? If you live in these areas where there have been wallaby encounters like this, make sure to comment it down below. Or if you've had any kangaroo or wallaby encounters in any other places that aren't Australia or the zoo or like some private collection or something, let me know if you had your own phantom kangaroo encounter. That'd have to be really interesting. And that's going to do it for the phantom kangaroo phenomenon. Thank you all for watching. This is a very interesting topic. I kind of wanted to do this for a bit. Just kangaroos in places where they shouldn't be. It's, it reminds me a lot of that platypus video that I did, but you know, it's a little different because we actually managed to find these kangaroos. Well, I didn't go out and find a kangaroo, but these kangaroos and wallabies actually were a lot of the time in places outside of Australia. And it's a weird instance of cryptid being. Is this really a cryptid? I mean, technically, those wallabies aren't cryptids anymore, but some of the encounters that haven't been proven, I mean, I guess those are cryptids, you know, like if these kangaroos actually managed to establish populations but weren't officially recognized like the European ones. It's still very cool, though. I just find that idea really cool. I always thought, like, what would it be like if you introduced a species here that isn't native? And usually disaster, but I feel that a kangaroo wouldn't be that destructive, you know, to like deer populations or any of that. But anyways, make sure to comment what you thought about it down below. Or if you have any other suggestions for any cryptids or any out of place animals, comment down below. If you like this video, make sure you like it. Make sure you subscribe and ring that bell for more content like this, and I'll see you in the next one. Let's get to 10K, baby. Goodbye.